Meeting is in order, Tuesday, September 5. We have a quorum. Steve Aldrich, the chair, could not be here because of a death and has an excused absence. Are there any comments on the agenda as circulated?
Nope.
Hearing none, it's approved as circulated. Any comments on the August minutes as circulated?
Move to approve?
Moved, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done deal, thank you. Paul, for the golf report, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, things, I mean, geez, it's already September here. We got a lot of color up there. The maples are turning up there already. It's like it's kind of pressing on us a little bit, but yeah, the weather's been really good when I think about it. The weather's been, we've had this hot flash here, but we've had a lot of, considerable amount of play in the morning and throughout the day. So it's been good. There's not much for bugs right now, and that's one thing I haven't even thought about for quite a while. But it's been really comfortable. I've noticed a considerable amount of Canadian traffic that we've had through as far as daily rounds and stuff like that, so that's good to see. More than I've noticed in the past. I'd say our overall trend is that our walk-in play, or when people that call in and make reservations, other than our members, that seems to be growing a little bit. And our greens this year have been really good all year, and so people walk out of there, they notice that. And, I think that I guess we have a lot of money left in our marketing thing, but the word of mouth thing really does, I think, will really help us there. The last month I had a couple of guys come through. One guy that happened through was he introduced himself. He's the superintendent from the Atlantic golf course out in New Jersey. It's a big course. He probably had about 25 to 30 employees. And anyway, he retired from that job, and now he's working for Golf Magazine. And he was just up visiting. He's got a sister who was on some island up the trail that he was trying to get together with. And so he was looking for just a off the beaten path 9-hole course, and found our course. And he and his wife came in and talked with me for quite a while. And anyway, he came back the next day. He played the course. He really liked it. He put it on his Twitter. He's got. I imagine he's got a following on his Twitter, but he took pictures and put it on Twitter. And then, so that was really neat. We exchanged information, so it was a really neat contact. And then the end of the month here, Scott Hoffman, who had been superintendent down at, and actually he had designed the classics course at, he's a big time superintendent all through my career. He's probably the leading superintendent up in the Northland, and he and his family were taking vacation, and so he came up. I wasn't here when he came through, but he couldn't golf anyway, but because he was with his family, and but anyway, he toured the course and he really liked it. So we got getting some really good feedback for what. But anyway, we our little crew there, I think, has really done a good job. We're kind of coming down to when I look at the records here, our numbers are up. We're not double or anything, but we're probably, this last month, we're up over the previous year, which is a good sign. And so that trend continues to grow. I haven't really evaluated our expenses. I get kind of a report, but they all seem to be kind of lagging behind. With our current expenditures, but I think we're going to be okay there. There's some things we've been talking about purchasing, and I think we're going to be trying to finalize a few things there, such as a sprayer. Our carts have been good this year. We replaced the batteries on the electric ones, so those are all running flawlessly. Our new carts, we've had absolutely no problems with them. They've been running great. And in the old carts, we've got those, we haven't had to depend on those too much. We use those kind of for the tail end of the day for people that play a little class closing time. And some of those, that's the way we've been using it. But, basically we haven't run out of carts when we press play, pressure attendance. So that's good. I think we're good for the number of carts that we have now. The only thing that we need to do is start, we have to continue, in my view, we need to replace the old ones. We have like a half a dozen old, super old ones, and keep them running. We try to run them as little as possible, but they sound terrible. They keep running. They're kind of, I don't know, they're starting to stand out even more than they did it before. But anyway, they're still useful, but I don't think we can depend on those. We have to work on those. Even as little as we use them, they still fail. So, obviously that's what we've been trying to replace those. So, I'm going to continue to try to replace those last 6. And then I think we should be set for quite a while, inserting the cards. And then, like I say, our play's been good. This coming month, from our records show that our leagues are over now. They're just going into the playoffs, so those guys will be doing their playoffs for the championship. They'll be getting their matches and probably finishing that within the next week and a half. Whatever play we get in the fall, the numbers didn't seem as, in history-wise, aren't as big as the August and July months, even June. So it'd be nice to try to get something going for fall as possible, that we could try to do some marketing up in Thunder Bay. And, I think a lot of any of the people coming up for, I know that Mike Davies, my friend from down in Lusa, and he always said that, that was some of their biggest play was in September, the leave, people come down for the leaves, watching and all that. So I think that that'd be something to try to get. Other than that, that's kind of it. We're going to be, we've got the MGA coming out to rate our course on the 19th of September. So for that, basically, they had asked me to do a stimp reading, which is kind of it's a standard reading that the PGA has, all the golf industry has. It reads your how your greens are rolling. I think ours are rolling pretty good, but we'll be coming up with a measurement for that for them, and then they want to know our height of cut. Then they on our greens, and then they go around and I'm not actually sure what they're going to do. They're going to be using 3 of our carts on that morning, and I'm not sure what the protocol is, but this is what they're going to do is refresh our slope rating, which we're obviously a 9-hole course with this, and they rate the slope tells how basically how challenging the course is. So golfers are interested in that at some point to know that it's a challenging course, not just a flat municipal track. So I think that that'll be to our benefit. And then, throughout the month here, we're going to be doing things we haven't been able to do because of the drought, also because of my back in the spring, and then, basically due to play, people on the course. But, we've got fertilizing to do, we've got some weed control to do. We've got a lot of leaks in the irrigation system. That's kind of that's been a thorn this year. We've had a lot of basically glue joints in the pipes that are letting loose or getting pin leaks in, and we have to fix those up, dig holes. It's kind of a cumbersome deal, and there's a lot of joints in that system. So I don't know. I think talking with my fertilizer rep, he gave me a couple of good leads, because we do have a lot of expenses related to irrigation. He gave me a good lead for a quartz turf supplier that has some interesting things to do with irrigation heads. But something I'm gonna look into. I think we can maybe save some significant money there, you know, with really good results. The other thing too is there's a professional down in Iowa that does, basically does plans for irrigation. I'm thinking about contacting him and having to do an irrigation plan for the course. Not that we're gonna be, you know, submitting that right away, but I do want to know what it costs, and the more, you know, I'm not an irrigation expert, but you know, this is obviously it's really a key component to the golf course, to a modern golf course, so you know, when I hear other courses, you know, courses that are, I don't know what their financial positions are, but they've got irrigation systems that are old, and basically that is kind of the thing that pressures them into having to look at working on their irrigation or coming up with a plan to, you know, renew their irrigation. So anyway, that's something that I'm going to be looking at, contacting that person and see what the procedure is for that. I think it'd be of interest. I think it'll probably be shocking how much money you have to spend for something you don't even see. It's like buried in the ground. But you know, our irrigation is really important. Every time we have to fix a leak, we lose water. We have to drain out of the system to repair the leak, and then we have to reload it. It's not the end of the world, but we do have a limitation on our water supply because we draw out of a little pond. So that's always been kind of a nervous point too. So those are kind of some things that we're, you know, off in the future that we're looking at is what to do about basically our holding pond. You know, we're going to have to probably future get in there and clean it up, excavate it a little bit. It's filled in with silt, I'm sure. But we need as much volume as we can get. We've had, you know, a couple times where we've been really concerned when the water starts dropping, and you know, if we were to continue for another 2 weeks, if we were to have extended drought, you know, we could lose a lot of grass. You have to start making decisions like, you know, okay, we can only irrigate the greens or tees and maybe the fairways every few days, or you know, it gets to be those kinds of decisions. You start losing turf, and then it costs you know, a lot of money to back in shape, seed, fertilizer, aerification, all that stuff. Anyway, that's kind of I guess the update. I don't know if you had any questions about the goings on up there, but I think it's been good. People have been having a good experience up there from my call. I've been having to do a lot of, I've spent a lot of time this year in the clubhouse due to my back, and you know, I need to do a better job as far as recruiting a few more people in there. Tony came up and spent a couple weeks up here in August before he had to go back to school, and it was just great. And so we hope to get him back next year. Of course, he's a professor, and he has to go back, you know, like in the fall here. But when we can have him here for the summer, if he's able to work, he's great. Of course, Eric does a great job. Paulina did a really good job. She did a really great job getting the women's league together this year. They did wasn't that many involved. I think she maybe scored up about a dozen women players, but you know, they had a good time, and they all weren't there every time, but you know, I think it's going to be she'll be able to grow it, you know. And anyway, Pauline doing a really good job up there. She's very bright. Has helped us out quite a bit. But yeah, that's mainly at the clubhouse. Probably need to get another couple employees up there, part-timers. I don't want anybody to, you know, we don't want to be competing with salaries at any of that sort of thing. It's hard to find people with the right mindset, because, you know, they just want to, we're just looking for people that wouldn't mind hanging out at the golf course for a day, you know, and working there maybe 2 days, something like that. So that's the people that are happy there now. That's kind of the mindset. That's what we're looking for.
Got it. What's your last play date for the year?
Well, basically the contract terminology is October. We start shutting down in October. Now, we've had this in the past where, you get some beautiful fall weather and spectacular weather at the beginning of October, but it gets to be where you don't have enough play to merit, keeping
Yeah.
keeping it staffed all the time. So we might play with, maybe trying to limit the hours that we're doing the clubhouse thing. The members, of course, are going to be able to come in and play, and then do weekends, that sort of thing. But in October, you really play it by ear. We kind of look way out to the west. There was probably 2 or 3 years ago, we made the call of spraying our course out early because we saw some snow that was coming from the west, and so we got our chemicals down, and I think we were the only people in the northern part of the state that did. Everybody else got buried in snow, which is, some of them had to double off their greens, and it was just a nightmare. Some of the more southerly ones, they just waited, and then the snow did finally melt off, but we had like enough snow in our case where it did stay, so anyway, that's what I'm saying. We just have to play it by ear, and it's, we can kind of keep things going, but at some point we just have to pull the trigger. And a lot of courses, you can find the NEA weekend. I'm not sure where that falls. I think it may be the third weekend of the month again, which is really late for up here.
Yeah.
That's when like Lutzen, they'll be open, trying to, because there's a lot of people that come up for that. I'd like to say we could be open for that too, but like I say, we just have to play that by ear.
So maybe the same time that Dave closes the campground, maybe? October 21st?
That could be a bit late, but it's definitely weather dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all seen, when you see those cars come down from the hill and they got a foot of snow on them, and you're still green down below there. So it is different just up the hill, And so, the pressure for getting things completed there's certain things we have to do that inhibit play, like we have to put up posts around the green so that we can rope it off. And so we have to do that before the ground's frozen. I'm guessing that, we'll probably certainly be sprayed out and roped off probably by, mid-October.
Okay.
If we saw like an extended forecast that was just really nice, I guess we could run it further, and but it depends on future forecasts and ground temperatures, really.
Yeah. So mid-October, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but you have to consider that October is our contracted date to shut down.
Mhm.
At least my contracted date to shut down, but we keep working beyond that, and of course people can play. We can keep it playable, we can keep it open. We'll be on the course.
And you and Dave will put together capital proposals for what you want for carts and leaks and irrigation and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think the current things that we're going to be doing is we've got to kind of finalize something on the sprayer, and then carts. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do much on carts this season because I had already pre-spent. Probably think about. Well, the carts we've been spending in the neighborhood of $15,000 for to get 3 carts. And then that's about what they're running these days. I think, and of course, everything gets a little more expensive as we delay, as each year goes by. And so we're going to get caught with that, increases that a little bit. But beyond that, we had to fix up our electric carts. We had to replace all the electric carts, which are 8 of them, with new batteries. And so, we got our bids went from like $15,000 was our kind of median bid $12,000 to $15,000, and I think we came in closer to 10 is where we ended up with what we did. And so it came out pretty good, but I don't know if we have enough for one cart or whatever. I talked to the representative. He's supposed to be sending me a quote pretty soon, but he said that you're ordering now, then their current delivery is in May, which is way different than the COVID situation we were in when we, they couldn't get parts. They couldn't, there's some really strange delays. And it kind of really set back our momentum on carts for, I think we lost basically a whole season on buying new carts. But from what I can see, we need to do about two more turns where we're buying 3 carts a pop. We get about 6 more of those new carts that will be, pretty solid. And then, we're going to be riding those electric carts. Those new batteries should last us another 5 years. And at that point, I don't know, then we're going to be looking at replacing those carts. It just kind of goes on and on. But those carts have been around. They were here before I started working here. This is my 5th year, so I'm not sure what, I think that they put those, I'm not sure what they put those on the program for, but maybe they put them on for 15 to 20 years. I have no idea what those are scheduled for. But we'll be looking at that stuff and try to make the numbers, realistic.
So that'll come back here next month or two, Dave, something like that?
Yeah, we do city council meetings this month with the budget, so
Yeah.
we'll certainly give you an update next month.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Paul? Anyone? Question for Paul? I think we're good. Hey, thanks
Paul.
very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Appreciate your time.
Yep, keep up the good work.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, city council, Craig?
What were you talking about? Oh, we had a preliminary little budget hearing. We did talk to a couple department heads. Other than that, the meeting pretty much surrounded the City Hall liquor store concept. We saw some plans prepared for us and some preliminary cost estimates for that. So that is pretty much everything covered at the city council meeting.
Dave, do you want the mayor to speak now rather than later?
Yeah, she does have a
Yeah.
5:30 engagement. so
Yeah.
We're gonna have Tracy and Shane step in, talk about a tree grant project.
Welcome, Mayor Benson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chair Sept. Tracy Benson, and
Shane Steele.
I just wanted to come for the park board as awareness and also because of your master plan project. One of the things that's been rolling around in my head for a while, especially after the last couple storms we've had this winter, is the effect of all these pine trees popping over around town. And a lot of unfortunates, including my next door neighbors, ended up with 2. And it made me think between public utilities, between the costs, between the potential damage at a time of year in which your home could easily become uninhabitable, and the fact that we also have a lot of residents in our community who don't live here all the time. I've got 3 on my block. A tree could go down, they're not there, and they don't know who to contact. Anyways, but that, is there some way we can get a program in to help residents identify trees that might need to go, help them identify an appropriate tree to replace it, and help them with the cost and just actually getting it done. And so then I outreached, that got me to Shane, got me to Elena Hansel, and we kind of talked it through, and then we've been looking for grants. And now there is a grant program, which Dave, you said you've utilized in the past?
Similar, but a different program,
Okay.
but through the DNR, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a Minnesota DNR grant called Relief Community Forestry Grants. There's no match to it. There's a lot of money involved. But they will help you you have 3 years to implement it, and it's for public and private land. And you can use it to develop your tree inventory in your community, a tree ordinance program, which we have, but we need an updated maintenance plan for trees or your tree work. It will pay for, if you don't have on staff the forestry help you need, you can contract. You can also get dollars for removal of the tree as well as the replanting, and they want a 1 to 1.5 ratio on planting back on that. And it's really geared for small communities, and it's also geared for if you have a lot of low income, which we do qualify, right? We did that. Or if there's another sector group, like we tend to have an older population that might benefit from something like that. I'm trying to think what else on the benefits of this. But for me, it kind of hit all of the check boxes. And then Shane has had a little bit different focus in addition to that fits within this grant as well.
Yeah, the grant is, part of the grant is that you must adopt a urban forestry management plan. And we don't have one of those. But we do have a lot of trees that need to be maintained, and we don't really have a schedule for maintenance or maintaining those. And so kind of everything that Tracy described, I think fits in with the forestry management plan. And it helps with our stormwater management plan because vegetation is part of that. It also helps with maintenance for the utility because they need to clear trees to make way for our lines or keep trees from growing up into those lines or finding trees that may affect those lines. And so this grant seems to fit in really well with our needs for public and private trees.
Is that a citywide grant? Would you have to have a citywide forestry management plan?
Yeah, the forestry management plan would probably just mostly focus on the city's trees, public
Yeah.
trees in public places, but it would also include probably some best practices for suggestions on how to, maintain the private trees in your yard, or how to get help with clearing trees and planting new trees. And that leads into the second part of the grant, which is the actual tree removal and tree
But
replacement.
would the council have to approve it for the whole city?
Yeah, what would happen is we'd write this grant, and the grant would fund us to contract, because we don't have anyone qualified to write a forestry management plan, but we could contract with someone to write the management plan and then just present it to the city. And
I've
just-
got 12 giant spruce that are all gonna fall on our house. So
Okay.
you would come and take those away, one by one, and
Well,
replace them with something better?
in theory. And you also have to look at what are the future trees that would grow best. We would want to get a recommendation. There's also limits as to, you can't have, if there's already so many percentage of this certain tree group in your community, you can't keep planting more of those.
Yes.
So there's a lot of future thinking that goes into this to help us kind of think about changing around the environment. So we want to make sure that those trees are successful when they're in there. And then you have to have a 3-year maintenance plan too, which, kind of buys into exactly what you're saying. Along with that, they're pretty thorough about how they want this done, which is good. And then, of course, you have to show everything you've done, including photos of the trees you've removed and planted, which is all very good. And we have certain people I know on staff in the park that probably have interest and expertise, but time is a whole nother thing. So knowing that there's dollars to hire out, some of that work, I think makes it easier for us to implement on this. And we have some great tree planting already done within our public streets, like all the apple blossom.
Yeah, those pretty red ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Gestel's planted.
And different people, yeah, and Jim Hayne did a lot of that. So we have a sort of a history of that, but we need to make it current, and I think this is a great opportunity. And it also includes dollars and monies for public awareness and getting everyone up to speed that way, which I think is really important. It's buy-in. You know, you might love your trees, and that's fine, no one's saying you need to take them down, but you might want help to identify a tree that you could put you or your home at risk, and then,
Or you might think you have trees that are at risk for your home, and they may not be.
Because Macmillan comes every year and X thousands of dollars in our yard just for the stuff that's falling on the house.
Mm-hmm.
Would we have to have the forester approve that, or is that a
no, I think-
coordinated thing?
Yeah, it'd have to be coordinated through the grant, and that's where we would be contracting with
Someone.
professionals.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that Macmillan might not be the one who gets the grant to remove and replace a tree,
Yeah,
but we'd be following the guidelines of the grant that way and see.
because if
So-
we didn't have them come in, we'd be lost in the woods in no time.
So my question is, so the management plan you're talking about writing up, do you have to do that before you apply for the grant?
No, that's part of the grant. That's
Okay.
one of the minimum requirements for the grant. Like, you have to pass this management plan first. That has to be included in the grant. It's a 3-year implementation period, so probably think first year, write the management plan. Second 2 years, remove and replace trees using the management plan and
Gotcha.
the dollars from the grant.
So you can apply for the grant and they know you have to do that first.
Yeah, so the
And
grant,
we don't give you money until you do that.
The grant application is due on September 18th.
That's why we're
That's
starting
why.
to rush.
We don't need like a approval from you or a letter of support from you or anything. We're just letting you know that we're gonna apply for this grant. It's not a complicated application. It's just whether or not they think we're worthy of their funding. And so I'll put together the best narrative I can, answering their questions, and we'll just hope that they can give us that funding. We have to put together a budget as well. So how much is gonna cost to contract the management plan, have someone write that for us, and then estimate how much it's gonna take to remove a certain number of trees and replace them.
So would you like the park board to say, great idea, go for it?
Probably. Or if you think somewhere in your master plan or just in the park in general, you have application and you'd like to,
Yeah.
put some specific items, so to speak, or commentary of, how it could be beneficial to the park, that would be great too, if you see that. But a lot of it's just to make you aware, because it does somewhat fall underneath your work, and if you see benefit. And I think the other thing that's part of this too is the money that we get to do outreach to the community to make them aware, even if it's just letting them know. Becky Bartle already got hold of us right away from the North Shore Forestry Collaborative. I'm not sure I said, is that right?
I think that's who they are.
And some of that group's interested in helping as well, but one of the things they came back to us already and said is we could help write together materials and brochures for education around trees and what's appropriate and not, and things that way. So a lot of that work we need to do would be part of the grant and all the steps we need to complete. So, that's where we start by today.
Yeah. How specific do you want a motion?
Oh, I'll just leave you guys to do whatever you want to chat about, and I gave Dave a link to the webpage for the DNR for this relief grant, and then also, they have a nice, lovely, if you really, can't fall asleep, 9-page little outlining bullet points of the requirements and what's in there. So I gave that to Dave.
I'll send that along to y'all.
So at your leisure, we can do that. Do you have more details?
I don't think we need a motion, though, it's just a FYI. and
Okay.
there'll be
But a
more
motion
items.
at some point downstream, and make sure it
Perhaps.
merges with the plan.
That was all.
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
good.
So,
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
thanks a
Thanks for your
lot.
time.
Thank you.
Anything else on council, Craig, or you're good?
No, I don't have anything else.
All right. Dave, Parks.
All right, thanks, Bob. I'll try to be brief. I know we got a big discussion up ahead on the master plan. So the Parks report, most people have a copy of, I hope, and August was almost exactly even, pretty amazing there, only $500 difference between last year and this year, which would indicate a slight dip in
Yeah,
occupancy,
that
you know,
3%
because,
rate increase.
yeah, rates were up
Yeah.
3%, and so we saw in July, we were up that same amount, 3%. August didn't achieve that same performance, as flat, so not an issue, though. Year-to-date, the trend line is still up 7%. I think there's a lot of room for growth in September and October midweek, but again, it's very weather dependent, just like golf. So talking about being open through the MEA weekend, that too is weather dependent. But we do see heavy bookings the weekends through about the 13th of October, I think, is the first weekend with availability for the RV site. So we got them every weekend now for the next month. The Overlook Landing project's coming right along. All the dirt work is in place, the rough grading is in, the concrete and stone work is done. There's a subcontractor that is on board with the Global Specialties Group that is in with the arbor and metalwork. They've had some staffing issues with their lead person having a pretty significant accident with an OHV, and that's put him out of service. Now it's a small family-run business. His sons are in a position to take over. It's just a matter of sort of bringing them up to speed and getting all the right materials in order. But CJ Fernandez is still very active in this as the project manager for us, and we've got every assurance that things will work out. They just are a little bit behind schedule on getting the arbor and artwork in place, but we do expect that to be up hopefully by the end of October. The big news for our campground management reservation system, our old system, it was known as Astra, is outdated. We bought it as a software package about 5 years ago. We've more than made our money back with it, obviously, with these kind of revenue numbers, but there's the group that owns Astra has evolved. They've been bought out by a bigger group as these things happen, and so the new system is called Firefly. It looks very slick. It's an online cloud-based subscription service. We'll be paying approximately $3 per transaction, which looks good because our current setup is costing us about $5 per transaction. So the cost is right. I've played around with some of the demo, and it's very intuitive and easy to book for the people using it online, which is obviously the big trend. We've got lots of back-of-the-house services that are going to be improved, and so now we're starting to switch over, which is pretty complex. We'll obviously be working with the Firefly people, and they can get into our system and recreate what we need and make new maps and get us up to speed to be ready for November 1st. That will be effectively opening up the 2024 reservation system or season. One of the pieces that'll change, though, is the booking scheme. We're no longer going to do a block of dates month to month. We're going to do an automatic rolling date. In just this modern age of automation, the online booking machine will just every day advance 6 months prior or ahead, however you look at it. But if you want to come on May 1st, that'll be available November 1st. If you want to come on May 2nd, you wait till November 2nd. So there was kind of a neat question somebody brought up. It's a leap year, so we're going to trick it. It'll be 181 days ahead instead of 180, but it'll still be that idea that if you want to come on July 4th, that'll be available to book on January 4th. And so we've done a lot of education with our summer guests. We've seen this coming for the last few months, so lots of folks asking when can we book next year. We've got a little cheat sheet for them. We're pretty confident it'll be smooth, maybe even smoother with the further dispersal of the demand. Radio Waves is coming to town this weekend. Friday starts the party. The radio station's already been down, the big tent's set up. Power's getting installed tomorrow. The temporary event power was going in tomorrow. They have a whole block of sites rented out back by that corner. There'll be a couple of food truck vendors, community fire ring, lots of activity back in the corner starting Friday and then concluding on Sunday. So obviously our staff will be keen to help out with this event. We always love hosting the locals for the party. We'll be manning the trash and recycling bins. We'll stripe the ball field parking lot to try to park it as efficiently as possible. And then the station is having a community tent as a part of the festival. They have this option for local organizations to present themselves at a community engagement tent, and I just kind of penciled us in for the master plan on Saturday afternoon. I don't mind sitting in that tent for Looks like maybe 1 to 5 will be our slot. And so I'm pretty sure we'll have something to present based on our next discussion, and I'll be happy to be taking feedback and input on our concepts at that event. And then lastly, the 2024 budget season's upon us, as we've talked about. Parks Department's going to appear before the council next Wednesday, I believe, is my slot to present our draft budget. I know this came up over the winter season on sort of what our budget looks like. I promised to share it with you guys in advance. You do see it. It's pretty lengthy. There's some good bottom lines, when it kind of comes to the revenue. We're projecting, 1.787, about, 1.8 million for revenue, and then expenses hopefully around the 1.4. So we always, use that extra 500,000 is the net revenue that offsets the property tax levy. So that's the macro. We intend to make about 1.8 or 9 next year, and we'll only spend 1.4. How this actually flushes out, though, every year is always subject to capital spending and depreciation and staffing and weather when it comes to revenue. But yeah, I'm sorry, this is probably a bigger discussion if you really want to get into it. I would invite you to attend the council meeting next Wednesday. There's probably a workshop or something that usually goes on before the meeting, or maybe it's inside the meeting, but City Council definitely dives into this with me, and we work through the draft. That is simply the draft, and then they are, responsible for setting the preliminary levy as a result of the drafts. But not till really November or December, when the final levy gets set, do the numbers really come in. Once we know our revenue from this season, that is a big factor.
Does this presuppose a rate increase or not?
It does. That's a good question, Bob, exactly. So on the revenue side, that's my standard formula is 3%,
Okay.
is what I typically multiply last year's projections by.
My other question was, what are taxable and non-taxable services?
I have those same questions. I always ask them to Kim. And so taxable would be like RV dumping. There's not much. Non-taxable, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There's merchandise, like non-taxable merchandise is our clothes.
Yeah.
What are those, let's look at those lines. Are they small amounts?
Well, it's 40.
Oh, you know what? Reservation fees.
40 and 35,000.
Yeah, the
Reservation
$10
fees.
reservation fee is non-taxable if they cancel.
Yeah.
This is even more nuanced, but so when we take a deposit, it's a $40 amount, 10 of which is the reservation fee. And if they end up staying and using that reservation, that fee is taxed to become $11.24. But if they end up canceling and not using the reservation, and we refund the refundable $10, the refundable $30 portion, the $10 reservation fee we keep, but it's non-taxed.
Okay.
I'm curious what the bank charges.
Yeah, yeah.
Credit card processing.
Oh, sure.
It's like that about 3% average on
Yeah.
our
That doesn't change.
revenue. It does change. The more, I've seen this over the years because of people don't use checks or cash anymore, they use cards.
Yeah.
And so the more money we make and the more payments we take with cards, the more our bank
Right.
fees are. So those really have picked up over the years.
But it's the same for proposed as current budget.
Yeah, we're hoping that we come in the same, because I think I put in quite a bit for last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some big items. PUC, utilities is always a big one. We seem to be like the best customers of PUC when it comes to the electric, sewer, and water. Is that the park, obviously consumes? Operating supplies is a big, line item. That's basically toilet paper.
Oh, yeah.
But it's, cleaning supplies and lots of consumables. And then maintenance and repair, 220 is a big line item for me as far as fixing things, hiring contractors, electrical fixes, tree removals, Yeah, there's some bigger items on that expense side that we really try to keep track of, and that you can see go up every year.
Do you want us to do anything, or just be aware
Just
of
be
this?
aware.
Yeah. And then later, there'll be a proposal to put a rate increase.
That's
in.
right. Yeah, we'll have to take that up next month, as then we'll need those rates set by November. So you can start to consider that.
Great.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
That's it, Bob, thanks.
All right. Under old business, only one item, the 2023 master plan, and I think Gabrielle is lurking in the wings somewhere. Yes, as if on call, yeah. Welcome to the park board meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for standing by, Gabrielle.
Oh yeah, appreciate your patience.
Dave, did you want to give an intro?
The floor is yours unless Dave wants to say something.
Well, we've been, busy this past month refining the concepts. What we talked about a month ago, I think, is now reflected in this latest round. We've got some small adjustments here and there, and I think Gabrielle can walk us through.
No, she's presenting.
All right. Can you all see the slide on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'll give a brief update on our project schedule, go into the revised draft concepts that Dave just mentioned, present some precedent imagery to show what some of these improvements could look like, and then we have a little analysis of campsite revenue that Dave and I worked on together, and then talk about next steps. So the schedule started in the spring. We had our first meeting in May. This is our fourth meeting. We anticipate maybe one more meeting in the fall to present the final. We'll see how it goes after tonight. And then we'll be doing some more engagement. It's great that this weekend is an opportunity as well, so we have some engagement planned for the fall to get more input from the community on these concepts. So as a reminder, last month we looked at the existing conditions. We talked about some of the issues and opportunities that have been discussed for the park, and then we presented two different concepts. One was maintaining mostly what exists in the park. The second one was making a little bigger moves, making a larger green space along the lakefront. And then as a reminder, this is the 2009 concept. So this had bigger moves, removing the softball field, adding a lot more campsites, and then adding the larger marina infrastructure on the lakefront. So we've taken a few of the elements from the 2009 plan and brought them into concept 2, and then we made a few more modifications to concept 1. So once again, this is the existing conditions. So we've highlighted the various types of campsites on here. So we have the lakeside electric water sewer, and then the electric water sewer non-lakeside, which is most of the sites. So those are all the red sites. The yellow is just electric water. The purple is the lakeside tent, so along the south side, and then a couple along this edge here. And then the greenish color is the tent sites, so mostly interior. And then they're also labeled with a hatch. So there's the non-reservable seasonal, which has the angled hatch. So a lot of these interior sites. And then the dot hatch shows the first come, first served, so along the lakefront. So a couple things that we talked about this month that we didn't bring up in previous meetings was that as we're making modifications to tent sites or campsites, every campsite by Minnesota State Code has to be within 400 feet of a restroom facility. And so we highlighted where the existing restrooms are and noted that these sites in the blue are more than 400 feet from a restroom. So that's something that we've addressed in these concepts. We also noted that per Minnesota State Code, all sites need to be 2,000 square feet, and so we've highlighted in this yellowish orange color, all the existing sites that are smaller than that.
And let me just add that, that would be for new campsite construction.
Right,
That-
yeah.
So we're not
Oh.
required to, as
Previous.
existing campsite, where if you, grandfathered in is the term, but there's not a requirement to be 2,000 unless you're building new.
Okay.
So is that 400, is that 400-foot radius to a bathhouse required even for a full hookup site?
It is for, yeah, for all campsites.
Even if
It's
you
just for general,
Okay.
we can look and see if there's any exceptions.
I was just
but
wondering,
The
'cause
code says all campsites.
Somebody that has full hookup, they're not even using the bathhouse, usually. I mean,
Yeah.
I think not, but
That's a good point.
just a question.
And again, I think this would be for new construction.
Oh, okay, anything we add.
Right, because we're currently licensed by the Department of Health. They come and
Okay.
inspect every year.
All right,
But yeah, they do have code on new construction.
okay.
Because you could let a tent stay at that site technically, if you let
True.
someone who doesn't have a full
Yeah.
restroom.
Right.
Would need to be near a restroom. All right, so this image shows the revised concept 1. So we've noted a couple extra things on here that weren't on the previous concepts. The conservation easement is outlined here, so this area will all be untouched by new development. We've also added some of those tent categories onto the map, and then identified the roadways a little more clearly, so the dark gray is the paved and the tannish brown color are unpaved gravel roads. We've also identified which type of signage we're proposing, so there's 4 different sign types: gateway, so that would be at the entrance; a kiosk, which would be at the proposed DNR trailhead; and then the others are wayfinding or interpretive. There are 3 interpretive sign locations along the lakefront, and then all the other icons are wayfinding. And then the blue labels are existing features that will remain, and the pink labels are proposed features. So if we zoom in a little closer, we can see the modifications that are proposed for concept 1 include the new DNR trailhead. We've revised this parking lot to show the stalls and labeled it as trailhead parking and long-term marina parking. Could also be for some of the campsites if they need extra parking spots. The maintenance buildings and community garden will stay. We're proposing rebuilding the rec hall in the current location to be a larger building and replacing the playground in the current location. We heard that bathroom 3 is in the most need of upgrades and improvements, so proposing to rebuild bathroom 3 in the current location. And then this is where we propose to relocate bathroom 2. So right now it's up here, so moving it down here would then serve these campsites down here. This has very few modifications to the campsite layout. There is a campsite here, so that would be taken out, and then there are a couple new campsites added where bathroom 2 was located. We're also showing the marina modifications, so the improved break wall, the hard armoring of the shore. So parking right here that is identified by a walkway, a new walkway, which would come down from the new community connection, go around the parking, provide ADA accessible pathway to the docks, and then a separated pathway from the road all the way down to the DNR parking lot. We've also identified where the yacht club storage is on this map, and then a trail connection to the existing picnic pavilion. That's pretty much all. The modification to the entryway drive, but otherwise the office woodlot stays in the same place. So then going to concept 2, there's some bigger moves as well. And I'll zoom into that, showing where we've identified the new pathway the green space on Pathway. We've relocated the park office here, call it a park marina office, and it has a direct pathway through some modified campsites to the parking lot. So we cross 8th Avenue at the crosswalk, go along the sidewalk, connect to the Marina Park office, and then to this pathway. Then we're showing a larger parking lot here, which would serve the marina for short-term drop-off, the park office for check-in, and perhaps a few extra sites for some of these new campsites up here. So this is a much different configuration of campsites in here. We've identified some larger premium campsites up here. One thing that we did not modify that we could look at modifying is these tent sites in here, which don't get a lot of use today. And then we added a bridge over the creek here. And identify the relocated B2, and we've combined the rec hall and bathroom 3 in this concept. So that's a larger building with the restrooms and a new rec hall and the DNR trailhead and parking. So are there any questions on the layouts before I move into some of the precedent imagery?
So in the executive summary, the big change between 1 and 2 is what?
Is this, well, the new park marina office, this reconfigured campsite area, and the new green area, green space and pathway along the lakefront. Those are the 3 big differences.
And things like revenue and campsites and,
Yep, we can get into that in the.
because that's where it'll hit the ground.
What was that?
That's where things will get contentious, is in reducing or increasing the number of sites, and from Dave's perspective, the revenue in whatever the reconfiguration of sites is, whether that makes up for the difference.
So, and then neither one of these plans, they don't have a sign on Highway 61 welcoming people or telling people where it is?
Yep.
But that-
Yeah, that's what this sign is, gateway sign up here.
Right on the corner.
Yep.
That red thing.
So it could be, I
oh,
think
gotcha, I see it.
previously it was
Red
over
circle at
here.
the top.
Yeah,
So with the new trail, we have to look at what the best location is.
okay, gotcha, thank you.
So yeah.
In concept 2, does it maintain the old bicycle trail as it is now?
Yes, so we've identified reconnecting, since that trail does exist, but the connection is not there, we've identified a
Right.
reconnection.
I wonder if that trail does anything. Dave, is it useful?
Currently, it's real dead end, like hits
Yeah.
a wall, hits a fence. There's a little
Yeah.
bootleg goat cart path has already been formed for those that want to get back on it. But yeah, it's a trail to nowhere right now, and it seems like still a useful connection to the park. If it were to be reconnected, it'd be a way to drop down into the bathhouse and even all the way through to the connection corner.
Yeah, even though there's a trail just a few feet to the north.
Yes,
But on the
it's-
highway.
Other side of the
It's
fence.
It's on the highway, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's not as pretty.
right.
So you wouldn't be pulling up that asphalt and,
Not the new trail. Just a little bit of rework on that corner to reconnect.
How many spaces are in that, in the concept 1, the parking area by the marina?
Right here,
I can
or,
barely,
oh, concept 1. I think we're showing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 AD, so 6 total.
okay.
All right, well, I can move into the precedent images and feel free to interrupt if you have additional questions. So, like, the layouts. Okay, so just a reminder of how we got to this point. We had the input and engagement. I went back to the survey to refresh my memory on what were the big takeaways from that survey. We heard from 414 people, a variety of visitors from outside the county, permanent residents from the city, then county residents, and then seasonal residents. We heard from all the stakeholder groups and representatives that came to the meetings in June. We've heard from you, the park board members, city staff input, and then looked at the Minnesota State Code and regulations, campgrounds. Some of the other considerations that are impacting these plans are the legacy funding. So making a plan that fits with the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission requirements, including looking at economic development and tourism, how the park considers recreational trends, how it considers public health, how it incorporates the values and the public input, and then we need to make sure we're identifying development and implementation plan, and then operations and programming plan in the master plan that we put together. We're also considering the revenue from the campground and the marina and how that impacts the park, city funding, and then other outside funding, grants, donations that could be resources in the future. So I've highlighted some of the elements that were heard from all those different sources. What were the big takeaways, stakeholder meetings, input that we've considered in these plans. So we heard to improve the pedestrian trails throughout the park. That was a big thing in the survey. Improving pedestrian accessibility to the park, making the park generally more accessible for walkers, and as well as improving the traffic flow for vehicles. Adding more gathering spaces and creating a formal community event space with band shell or amphitheater. So this last one is one that we did not address. We had in a previous concept to consider amphitheater, band shell, but we have not included that. But we did add another picnic shelter in concept 2. So these are some of the existing images. Existing picnic shelter, the sidewalk that goes down 8th, and then when you come out of the Northhouse Folk School and Community Connection, this is what you see in terms of the roadways and parking and other facilities. So we've proposed a lakeshore path. We've proposed some new picnic shelters. Could be what these are just images of what potentially could look like from other places. Some other items that we heard about are improving the marina. So a lot of the elements that we heard about for the marina were the circulation and water quality, replacing or adding a new break wall, hard armoring of the shoreline to make it more stable, adding drop-off and handicap parking near the docks, improving the support facilities for boating, especially the fuel docks, and then creating a clear pedestrian route from the parking lot over by the DNR trailhead that we're proposing back to the marina. So these are some of the existing images. And then these are some other marinas, just to look at what some newer marinas look like with all of the infrastructure that's built around them. Here's showing some docks, boats, an L-shaped break wall here, parking, hard armored shore here. You can see the paved walkway and then the fencing right along the water.
Gabrielle, let me interrupt. Did you and Dave look at, Steve, the chair was very concerned about the possibility of Mediterranean parking as improving the number of available spaces for boats?
We talked about that a little bit, and Dave said that's something we can talk about as an implementation item. So we didn't, the way we designed it, I think it could work either way. Would you agree with that, Dave?
Yeah, it's definitely a discussion much farther down the road.
So that's not a hardware discussion, that's an implementation discussion.
Well, it's the detail of the marina layout itself,
Yeah.
yeah. I think for the sake of the concepts, there's just the spatial usage of like, can we
Yeah.
use this much space? But when it comes to the actual configurations of the docks, that's a much more detailed engineering.
Okay, because he wanted to be sure that was an option.
Sure, and it is. And
It is still an option.
for a lot of, it depends on the layout, and that is yet to be determined. based on the availability of space.
Okay.
All right, so we also heard about the views are really important. Maintaining the views of the water from the campground and from the park in general were important. Adding more picnic shelters and community gathering spaces, whether they're picnic areas or shelters. Making the park feel more welcoming for all users, especially the local community members in the summer while the campers are there, and then improving the natural resources within the park. We also heard about wayfinding, so just in general, people get confused when they're walking through the park, so adding more wayfinding and more clear circulation paths. And then dual language signage, something we talked about in stakeholder meetings, as well as land acknowledgement and improving the circulation throughout. So these are some of the images of the existing signs within the park. And then you have some images of other interpretive educational signs, which could be examples potentially for inclusion along the lakefront. These are some images of some creative directional wayfinding signage. So this could be a way to tie the signage back into the community connection. What's going to happen there? It could match some of the city signage that's downtown to tie the branding of the city and the campground and the park all together. We also found some images of dual language signage. So there's some creative portent steel signs, some artistic signs, some pavement markings, more interpretive signage, and then just a typical road sign with the dual language. So these are all examples of what it could look like, or something that could be inspirational for the design of new signs. We also heard about improving the campground. So when we asked about what the big things were in the campground to improve, it's rebuilding and renovating the bathhouses, adding trees in and around the campground was mentioned, and then a new campground office. So these are existing images. And then here's some images of what some newer campground buildings look like at other sites around the region. So could take some lakeshore architectural look to a new building if there's a new office built. We also heard about the crowding, the carrying capacity of the campground. That was pretty high on the list on the survey, and then the campsite size and density. And then we also heard from park board members making sure that the revenue is maintained with any of these modifications. So these are some of the images of the existing campground. Could there potentially be some larger premium sites that have a little more space to them and the views? All right, so now looking at the campsites in a little more detail, since that was a discussion point last month, we've done a little more analysis about the existing campsites. These are the numbers for what is there today on this top image. The second, this middle table here shows campsite, or the concept one, what happens to the campsite. So very few modifications, just with the removing and rebuilding of the bathhouse 2. This adds a couple seasonal sites and then removes one first come first served site. So virtually the same number of sites as the existing conditions. And then concept 2, we change up, remove 33 seasonal sites, add 14 first come first served sites. These could be seasonal, these could be reservable. We just put these numbers, we picked a section to put these numbers in, so these could be moved around. But the total number of sites is shown over here. So going from 146 existing to 127 electric, water, sewer, going from 80 electric, water to 81, lakeside 10 to 17, 16 in concept 2, 10 sites, 36 in existing, and 45 in concept 2. And then the lakeside electric, water, sewer, 15 existing, 18 concept 2. So when looking at the revenue, I think somebody asked what those, at the last meeting, what those first row, 18 sites brought in, and David estimated about 150, so we looked at the numbers, and it brought in about 152,000 last year, for those first 18 sites along the lakefront. Looking at some of the detail, you can see what type of site it is, the number of nights that site was booked, and then the gross revenue. So this doesn't take out some of those some of those expenses that you were just talking about previously, the sewer expenses, electricity expenses, water expenses that the city pays. So of those 18 lakefront sites, 13 are first come, first serve, and those gross between 9,000 and almost 11,000. The two that brought in the highest gross was Site 2 and Site 4. So those were booked for 189 nights and 199 nights respectively. So 10,854, 10,553 for those two sites. Then there are two seasonal sites which make about 5,000 a year. So those are rates that have been grandfathered in. And then there's 3 tent sites that make up about 4,000 a year. So then you can see that those were booked fewer nights, probably due to the weather and not having an RV. So this is the detail on what was for last year. So I think this is probably pretty consistent. Just to get an idea for where that revenue comes from. When looking at making the modifications, we did, on the previous site, previous slide, we identified, today there are Lakeside 15 electric water sewer, in concept 2 we're proposing 18. There is a consideration to make those premium sites, a little bigger, a little nicer, and charge a little more, potentially charging $80 a night on those if they're first come, first serve, could generate potentially 14,000 per site or 260,000 per year, which would be a 110,000 increase over the 150,000. There's a lot of detail and hypothetical situations in here, so depending on the way the sites are designed and the rates, this is just showing that those sites could make more in concept 2 if they're designed to be nicer, and then the fees could go up. So looking overall at the number of sites, today there are 296, concept 1, 297, concept 2, 289. So really there's only 7 sites left, but they are classified differently. So we could do a lot more detail in terms of potential revenue based on rates for various sites. Right now, there are 5 different rate structures. These are the varying rates today. So there's a lot of different ways that we could, identify how the revenue could change. But it is all hypothetical.
Gabrielle, I just want to break in. Want to break in on a bit of a weather report here. It's turned very dark. We're hearing thunder. The power's sort of blinking, so if we lose power, we might lose, we will lose you. Okay. I might not be able to get you back.
Wow.
We got a big,
So there's some severe weather moving through, but yeah. And so I would just maybe reinforce this idea of the revenue and the site count it's quite hypothetical.
Right.
I don't feel it's a big driver for, at least tonight, for example, we're just approving these 2 concepts for further public review.
Sure.
And so we're not deciding anything tonight beyond the scope of, are we comfortable with these 2 concepts and sharing them and soliciting feedback?
Yep.
But I
Closing the
think,
window.
I think
Good
we've done a
idea.
pretty good job of summarizing the site counts and the revenue potentials. Everybody going out to roll up their windows?
Yes.
Exactly.
Just battening down the car.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking about my house,
Yeah,
too.
it turned very dark, very
It was
quick.
80 degrees and windows are wide open, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a really strong wind
time to close the sunroof.
coming off the lake. Huh?
So I'll say that both concept 1 and 2 look great. right? I feel
Mhm,
like
I
we've
agree.
really refined them to the point of, being public ready. I love the pedestrian connectivity, the focus on parking, bathhouse improvements, signage, wayfinding, that all suits our feedback and I think at the stage we're at. How about this, Gabrielle? So we've got this Radio Waves Festival and my being in the community tent on Saturday, do you feel we can move forward with some materials that quickly? Something to share with the festival
Yeah.
goers and it's just a simple, like, which plan do you like? What do you like about them? What do you not like? I mean, are you in a position this week to get me prepped up for a little public engagement this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. We can talk about what exactly the materials should look like
Good,
after the meeting.
thanks.
And then how do you take questions, comments?
Yeah,
So, yeah, we've done it a number of different ways. I don't know, you've probably done engagement with your other things that you've developed lately, but we've done boards where people can, mark with Post-it notes or dots which one they
Yeah.
like better, or they can vote, or we put together a simple online survey that you could have a QR code so people can look at them and then snap the QR code and select either as one or two, and then have an option to write in comments. So there's a number of different ways that we can
great,
facilitate that for you.
thanks.
Is it possible for when you do that to have a bigger picture of concept 1 and concept 2, or just?
That's gonna be tough at
This
the
is the
local
size.
printing. I don't think Northern Wilds is printing big anymore.
Yeah,
That'd be
okay.
the issue there, but maybe something we can mash up with the downtown printer. I mean, I can make like 4 of these
Right,
that
right, right.
create something big. We'll work on it.
Yeah, we might be able to deliver, get some things sent up.
Oh yeah, Speedy is usually good for a day, yeah, or even from Duluth, yeah. Boy, it's just what we need this week.
Some
Let's
rain.
slow down in the park, we can focus on the plan.
Yeah.
Well, what
So
about
are
you
there
all?
any other
Yeah.
questions or comments on any of the concepts? Or
No, I think
the
they-
revenue?
I think they both look good. I think, just what I've seen, I think a lot of people are gonna talk about the revenue. So it'd be nice to be able to, I think they're gonna ask that question.
And I feel the answer is, it's gonna be fine.
I don't, right, but I'm saying that's.
We're gonna make
just-
money no
But
matter
they're
what.
gonna, that's gonna be the question, I think, that people are
Yeah.
gonna ask is,
Yeah.
are we still gonna make the same amount of money?
Some people,
Some
Maybe.
people, not everybody, but some.
yeah.
And then I think we need a verbal executive summary of 1 and 2, so that in a short paragraph, you can say, this one goes this way, this one goes that way, and it's revenue neutral. I mean, that,
Talking points.
because the pictures are quite confusing, even if you sort of know what's going on, there's still lots of colors and lines and things.
Mhm.
I mean, you know what it means, but even knowing what it means, it's hard to really look at it without doing a quick flip from one slide to the next and then explaining the difference.
Agreed.
This is where the new office is, this is where the new marina walkway is, and then flash from one slide to the next, and keep going back and forth until you get the idea.
I mean, yeah, and also the other thing I think is parking, at the marina,
Yeah.
the parking.
Yeah,
Because when I walk by there now, I see a lot of cars parked down there,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's a big change.
And then same thing, kind of flipping, going from, this is where you park now, this is where you will park.
Right.
These are the options for parking, this is how far you have to walk.
Well, in addition to the radio waves event, we'll have to do something further, I feel.
Yep.
Like a
Oh, yeah.
broader
Right.
approach, maybe like another Survey Monkey. What do you think, Gabrielle?
Yeah, we did say in the previous engagement session, we did say we would be coming back in the fall presenting these concepts, so.
Get it back
yeah,
out to the
those two
stakeholders.
based on, am I losing you?
No, I was just saying,
Okay.
reconnect with the stakeholders who have already contributed.
Yep. Yeah, so we can, if there are ideas about that tonight, we can talk about that, or we can see how the event goes this weekend and then plan to reconnect early next week to talk about scheduling and next, the phase 2, presenting these concepts and getting that feedback.
It would be nice to begin to schedule, because we are at the edge of September. There's kind of this closing down quality. The golf course is going to close, the campground is going to close, public interest will drop off.
Yeah.
Do you want to get that scheduled in September? Or beginning of
Let's
October?
pencil it in like your dots, showing like a late September open house idea.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm flexible based on what works best with your schedule. For
Would you-
these meetings, I think you talked to some of the groups, Dave, and then looked
Mhm.
at the date that worked best. Do you want to do that again?
Yes, and/or, we'll just, I think, have like one open house and
Yeah.
everyone's invited.
Would that be
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
And then would Gabrielle be involved in presenting?
Mm-hmm. I hope,
Yeah, yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if something could be sent to the people, like the stakeholders ahead of time.
Yeah,
For them
for
to
sure.
look at, and then an open house where we can have
Yeah.
conversation and.
For sure. Big
just-
maps on the
Presentation,
table.
conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm playing to my graphic head here, but if you could have the two slides back to back so that a stakeholder could flip from 1 to 2, and then look at parking, 1 to 2, and walkways, 1 to 2, and help them get a simplistic walk-through idea, and then use that as a graphic executive summary of each, I think that would help. Usually I only get confused by financial spreadsheets, but when I look at these maps, I don't know what to do with them, not having been through the dialogue that you and Dave have.
Yeah, we could do a diagram where we highlight, we could fade back concept 1 and 2 and just highlight the elements that are
Yeah.
different on each one.
Yeah, flip back and forth. I'm glad you asked that question. Here's your answer. And you can't miss it.
I have a question about the office. What kind of shape is that building in? I mean,
Well, it's in really good shape because about 6 years ago, we did about $110,000 refit with new windows, new siding, new insulation. It's like a basically energy efficient upgrade to make it modern and put in a high efficiency, propane.
okay.
And so we've invested in it already to be very comfortable, very stylish, I would say. And in fact, I'm even looking at a repaint because it's been 6 years and the south sides and the west side is faded. And so we'll continue in the office space we're in. It's very comfortable. The guests enjoy it as the sort of cozy little house they come to every year. And so there's no immediate need. It's not like it's, an old house that's on its last leg. It was in that position, I would say, 6 years ago, where it was, it's a probably circa 1950s build. And so it's very inefficient and old fuel oil heating and old windows and et cetera. So with the upgrades and the improvements we've made, it could easily go another 50 years. That said, there's congestion in that area. There's, it's a long way from the marina. It's a nice little house that I'm sure someone would be interested in moving.
That's the thing.
As we've seen.
So it serves its purpose, and there's really no complaints in its current condition, and we'll continue to keep it up. But this is more of a 2009 sort of vision of that combined campground and marina office that's, closer to the marina and would be more accessible to those guests. As the marina improves and increases the capacity and the slips and the service, there's sort of a disconnect there where it's 300, yards away.
So was that building redo, was that in the 2009?
No, 2009 showed a concept 2
Yeah,
Okay.
type of
a new
Okay,
place.
thanks.
combine.
So you just went ahead and did it just because it needed to be
Yeah.
done?
This is part of the tree replacement.
And we knew
Say.
the funding, I mean, it was like
New trees coming.
the concept 2, slash 2009 modeling is $1 million building.
Right.
And we
Gotcha.
thought, well, should we spend 100,000 or should we spend $1 million?
Right, okay.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I don't know, this would be me, if I was looking at this as a public, like, well, what do we need? I mean, these days,
Fortunately, very little because we've kept up.
right, and so having a drastic, I mean, I've gotten more conservative as this process has gone on, so it'll be interesting to see what people,
And I think the legacy regional significance in terms of how they would answer that question, we've sort of heard it. We need a better marina, better public access to Lake Superior.
And how about, what's your feelings on where the office is located now in Concept 1 about all these big, huge vehicles pulling in there and coming into your spot and things like that?
It's been working. It's, Concept 1 has a little bigger turning radius around the office with a little tweaking of a few sites in that turning area, but it works. People come down the hill, they stage on the hill, they pull across the street to the old pool lot as needed, We kind of enjoy that, we're busy, they're lined up the hill,
Right, yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's not ideal, and I think for maybe some of the biggest of big rigs, they get a little choked, but they're a smaller percentage of our users. And I wouldn't, it's kind of like a church and Easter Sunday analogy where, for the average size trailer or tent camper, they're just fine.
I was gonna
Gotcha.
take my bike down here.
But yeah, I'm really excited to get these out to the public and get some
think it look-
constructive
yeah.
I
criticism.
might hang out a little bit at the tent too.
That'd be great. I
Okay.
certainly welcome that.
Okay,
I might too.
yeah.
Give me
Be
something to do.
interesting. I
She's
know,
too-
somewhere to go.
She's too conservative. We need to get a more radical redesign.
You can join us, Bob, too.
Yeah, you can ride your bike right in there.
I was gonna ride it tonight, but I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Well, great work, Gabrielle,
Yeah,
And
that's
thank you very
that's
much.
really good.
and team. And
Yeah, I had a lot of help, I didn't do this all myself.
And as long as you would stand by our group in a public presentation, that would be very helpful. To have a comprehensive face present sort of what the feedback was and what you saw, rather than, this gang of conservatives and liberals duking it out in front of the public.
the moderator.
Sounds good, I'd be happy to.
Exactly.
Great.
All right, so Dave, I'll put together a summary of some materials and then we can review it maybe tomorrow if you have time.
That sounds
Work
great.
on those right away.
Thanks, Gabrielle. We'll certainly be in touch.
Approximate date?
Great,
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
yeah.
Do we have an approximate date for this?
Sorry?
A date
For
We
the
don't
open
yet.
house?
for our public
Community?
meeting?
Last week in September. Anybody got conflicts?
Yeah.
That's what I'll do. I'll send out, I was planning on forwarding along the Relief grant program that Tracy presented, and in that email, I'll ask for no-goes on the end of the month,
Right.
and we'll come up with something soon.
Great.
Now we need an umbrellas.
'Cause that would be fun to attend, as long as somebody else is the focus.
Yeah, I think Gabrielle will do a great job moderating.
Yeah.
So our next meeting is October 3rd,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
You want to package it in with that meeting? Start early? It's just a thought. I'll put out an email, we'll see where everybody's at the end of the month.
That works much better for
3
me.
o'clock or something. Yeah, it'd work better for me too.
Okay. I'll fish that out.
Okay.
Steve and Craig and see where we're at.
Great. Are we, is there,
Well, we're still in session, and Craig has his
He had to
stuff.
run home.
yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
He had to run home.
I think he intends to come back.
Well, it looks like it, but I think we can still adjourn without him.
Is there any new business to come before this group? Dave, anything else?
No, you mentioned cannabis use early
Yeah.
off camera. We didn't have, not one complaint or comment about it all month.
Good deal.
Too soon for that, probably, huh?
Or it's
See what
just,
radio waves brings.
yeah, no new business.
And let's see, was there anything else? Oh, any capital items would come after the draft budget into the fall, like if Paul needs something, or,
Yeah,
If you
so
need something.
in the budget, those built-in capital numbers are just placeholders. They're kind of averaging like 20-year spends. For example, at the golf course, you see about a $15,000 line item for capital for equipment. And that's a like 20-year amortized amount, saying like, some years we'll spend 15, some years we'll spend 30, some years we'll spend none. Well, I doubt that, but, so the way that Kim, the finance director, and Mike and the city, as far as capital, we buy with cash because of the general fund, and then kind of spread that out over like a 20-year snapshot. It's so that equipment is on a schedule, trucks are on a schedule, and that amount, if it's a $50,000 truck and it's scheduled to last 10 years, every year 5,000 is in the capital bin.
yeah.
And so we sort of take that same approach for the park and the golf course, knowing that we've got some big ticket items and that we put in that placeholder money. It doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna spend that year, nor does it mean we are limited by that each year. And so, in particular with the golf course, we always, I think, generally end up overspending because the fleet is aged and the carts are aged and everything needs replacing, it seems, constantly. And so that's one of the, I would say, the bit of a reality with golf is it's costly to operate a golf course. It's being subsidized. So this is a discussion the city council every fall is a frank discussion. Are we comfortable with a $50,000 or $80,000 loss at the golf course? Is that okay? Because that's, 2-3% on the levy. And there's, look at membership, and there's like 50-some members and only 10 of them are from the city. And so we always get a little bit nervous or anxious about the, Gunflint Hills Golf Course is a city golf course entirely funded through city taxpayer revenue, but it's serving the greater community, it's serving the county, and the county members are benefiting, obviously, and not directly contributing in city tax dollars, hence the city discount.
And so, is that golf course, is that just a little island in Cook County that's the city, or the city doesn't?
Yeah, it's outside of the city limits,
It's-
but
right,
it's
right.
owned by the city. But yeah, it's 4 miles up the hill.
So it's, yeah, okay.
And we know, just through the history of the expenses and revenue, that it accumulates, massive losses over,
Right.
10 years. It can be hundreds of thousands of
But
dollars.
it's a valuable piece of property,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And so we just, we work with city council on their comfort level with the golf course. And if the irrigation system needs replacing, 15 is not going to touch that. And if the clubhouse needs replacing, and the septic, and there's some bigger fixed expenses at the golf course that aren't accounted for on the balance sheet. And we admit that. And we just live kind of in the moment of, people love that place, certain people, and we're willing to support it.
The marina would have a whole different kind of funding. That would have to come from the state or the feds.
Exactly. The kind of
Unlike
improvements
the
we're
golf
looking at with the break wall and the
Yeah.
docks, that's
That's
tens of
big
millions of
ticket
dollars.
stuff, yeah.
That's right.
The new break wall and the area of the beach surrounding that was immensely well-used over these recent days.
Yeah. as the
And, I was
swimming
down there
pool.
with the grandkids flying kites a couple of times, And there were people, half-naked people frolicking in the water all the way down.
That's what
Along the
63
front.
degree water will get you.
It was a Nordic Riviera. It
Yeah.
was very impressive.
I saw that Sunday. We were out on
But-
our sailboat. We saw your kites, and we saw
Yeah.
the crowds on the beach, and
Yeah.
it was like Bayfield.
3
Attractive.
days of the Nordic
And I
Riviera.
think
that we
for us locals to be able to take the kids to the beach locally
Yeah,
and not go up to a warm lake was great.
yeah, well, enjoy that while it lasts.
Yeah.
Be
it's
gone
over now.
tomorrow.
We did.
Well,
It was super rare to have 60 degree water.
Yeah.
I mean, upper 50s, yes, you can get in, you can get out, but as you saw, you could just swim in it when it was
yeah,
64.
yeah. But it's just a great amenity to have within walking distance of
That's
a
right.
city resident's house.
And that's, again, that's what makes us regionally significant.
And you saw that in her summary, that local access, walking, pedestrian, local park got a lot of weight. And I assume all those weren't local feedback items, but probably a lot of them were. You know, I think of it as a park, not as a trailer facility.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready?
We are at the end
We're
of
not
the
gonna
item.
wait for the
and
storm to-
Hearing no objection, let's just adjourn.
Yeah, here we go.
I'll
And
second.
I don't know when Craig is going to pick up his stuff, but
He's got keys, I bet.
Probably not, but I got his cell phone, so I'll call him.
Do you
Thank
want
you
us-
all.
Should we
Thank
leave
you.
these here, or should?
No, please take them.
Okay.
Enjoy them. Share them with your friends and neighbors.
We're gonna go,